back into our work session at 10:38, and up now is Mr. Jay Hollins on a variety of topics.
Okay, let's start with the handbook, I guess. The handbook hasn't been updated for a number of years. The auditor's management letter mentioned it, so over the past 6 months or more, we've updated it. There's been a lot of new employment legislation, especially this year, that affects us, so we've implemented all those changes. And then over the years, we've added policies, changed policies, and those haven't really been folded into a new handbook, so we've done all that. So the whole process, just for those who haven't been involved, not only I reworked this handbook, but CIS legal counsel reviewed it. We implemented her recommendations. The department heads, we met with the department heads and got their input. County councils reviewed it. Finally, over the past few days, I've gotten back with each of you commissioners and discussed the things that were still a little bit undecided or still needed some clarification. So that's where we're at. The one thing that we've talked a little bit about, but we're still unclear about, one snag that we might hit is with the overtime policy. What I'm proposing is that we go with what the law says. The Fair Labor Standard Act says that we pay overtime on actual hours worked over 40 in a designated work week. Our current policy is that we include holiday, vacation, sick leave, and include those hours when calculating overtime. So somebody could actually work 15 hours in a week and get paid overtime for all of those hours. The union contract states all time work in excess of 40 hours will be paid at time and a half. 40 hours in a designated work week. So the union contract says exactly what we want it to say, but our county policy has been different for a long time. So the snag is, I talked with the union rep, he considers that, since we're changing our policy, a mandatory subject to bargaining. The way I understand it is, if you have something that's not included in the union contract, and you're changing your past practice, then it is a mandatory subject to bargaining. But if it's already in the contract the way you want it written, it's not a mandatory subject to bargaining. So I've gotten advice from LGPI, CIS, and I'm getting conflicting advice at this point. So Jim Bailey's trying to help sort that out. We're following up with those attorneys asking for case law or statute that will help give us some guidance. I hopefully have that by tomorrow. But
So what I'm hearing is, and we went over all this, Jay, but I didn't comment or pick up on that specifically. This is already negotiated and part of the language in the union contract that our union, the union's official shouldn't dispute the fact that all we're doing is lining up our county handbook policy to match what's already been negotiated by him and others.
yeah, that's the way I see it.
To me, I can't believe that there was a disagreement from any of our people reach out to because of it. Handbook is whatever's written in the union contract will supersede what's in the handbook. The union contract has it spelled out. We're not changing anything other than what the union contract says. We're abide by.
Maybe the handbook, I'm not right at that page, but maybe the handbook's in your hands to say on that particular issue we were following the union contract.
We did do that.
Within the handbook, I can't tell you where, but it says that in conflict with the union contract, the union contract is
Exactly. So, still trying to sort this out.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I think.
Some of this is already sorted, that you're just talking to people to make sure the way it's sorted.
Well, I think, either way, I think we need to implement this policy. It makes sense. If the union comes back and demands to bargain that single issue, open that single issue up, we would have a fight with the ERB to say, we don't think this is a mandatory subject to bargaining.
Well, and Jay, where I'm at is we're following what the law is.
Mhm.
So if the union come back and demanded to negotiate that, our argument would be, all the way to arbitration would be, is we're following what the law is, and we have that backed up by that documentation, so.
Yeah, so as we get into union negotiations, because this will get into union negotiation discussion, we should probably discuss that part of it in executive session tomorrow with our county council.
Okay. But we can, all of our union negotiations was in public thing, but this is, you're
This is,
exactly right. This is.
there's gonna be some strategy involved here, so.
Yep.
Probably
Okay.
should. I think the right thing to do is what we have in the handbook now. You know,
Okay.
it's responsible, government employee. Do you want to go through any of the changes in the handbook, or do we feel comfortable with all the things that we've discussed?
I'm comfortable with some reserves, as I mentioned, Jay, is, we're doing a handbook for employees,
Right.
but we're also trying to implement some county policies through the handbook, and I keep struggling a little bit as we're setting county policy that's more than just employees out there as a county policy, so,
Yeah, so in this handbook, I hear what you're saying. I think, you know, the smoke-free workplace is a good example of that.
that's the easiest one.
Where the handbook should be an employee handbook, what we are expecting of the employees. And we're telling the employees in this handbook that our campus is smoke-free. You've got to go off-site to smoke or in your cars. If we want to extend that to the public, I think that needs to happen in a separate discussion. What do we want our county policy to be for the entire campus, not just for employees?
Yeah, that's one right there I'm struggling with myself. I'm not opposed to it, but it's, I want to treat our employees the same as the public, and our public the same as our employees when it comes to, it's what everybody's doing, is smoke-free, tobacco-free, however you want to say. I just at the hospital yesterday and noticed their signs blocking in. The state, I believe, the governor has went over the top a little bit too far. They can't even smoke in their vehicles on any state property. So, that's one that possibly is molding over to the county property policy along with
Yeah, I
the
agree.
personnel handbook.
Most counties and cities that have a smoke-free workplace or a tobacco-free workplace policy, they extend that to the public too. I don't see any way of really enforcing that. I don't know how you would, unless they're violating the law, which is you can't smoke within 10 feet of the doors and windows, open windows.
Yeah, that's the state.
Then it's a state law. But, yeah, that's what we're seeing. Most,
City of Eugene, the city council, they're considering all of downtown to be smoke-free and tobacco-free.
streets and everything.
Everything.
Okay.
So it's way beyond their
That's-
employees.
That's the direction things are
The
heading.
city, well, I don't know if they'll pass it, but that's being proposed, so.
So I guess that's sort of, I asked this question, I was talking yesterday about this. Are the sidewalks here city or county?
Sidewalks are city, I think. I'm not sure.
They should be the city, but the responsibility probably. of the
Yeah,
county,
I think
just
that's the
the
truth.
business community, they're responsible for the upkeep that they belong to.
Yeah, it's city property that we are tasked with maintaining and keeping sidewalks in, city street. So we could actually push, by doing this, could make it much more visual for smokers to stand in.
On the sidewalks.
Sidewalks and out in the street. And one of my issues way back when I first came on was county employees and others that were gathering in places, and it wasn't a good, public didn't care for it too much.
Yeah.
So I go back and forth of creating just a smoke area for the public and employees. Or, it's sort of a little bit more unique whenever we're so public here at the courthouse itself. We're talking more than just courthouse property. We have the annex, we have the road department, we have public health, on, fairgrounds, so for museums. But it's pretty unique whenever we have court day here, and this has been my one thing, is people, the public coming to court, and some of them are pretty dependent on their habit. And how we try to mold where they'll end up standing around and smoking can be a challenge. And it can be a challenge that our employees or the public's exposed to, but they won't be exposed to the secondhand smoke. So I'm struggling with that one, some trying to figure out the right thing there, implement it in the handbook. Would only be for employees, it wouldn't be for the public, or commissioners would have to set a policy of what we're going to do there. But it wouldn't make much sense to do it and not go all the way.
Yeah.
Is where I'm we have had public health before us and ask us about it.
Yeah, because we do have to look at the end goal, and the end goal is not just to keep our employees from smoking, but it's from that smoke being there, period. We have 3 people here that we get asked the question of between Kevin and Jimmy and Denise where they smoke, how they keep them.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's the argument of smoke-free or tobacco-free.
Yeah.
So anyways, that, didn't want to belabor it very much, but that's one that I personally struggle with.
So are we comfortable with the way it's currently written then? Smoking, not tobacco, but no smoking on county property?
The way it's written in red?
No, you've got an old version there, sorry. Let me read it to you. What page are you on, Dan?
462, smoke-free workplace.
Lake County provides a smoke-free environment for all employees and visitors. For purposes of this policy, smoking includes the smoking of any tobacco-based product and smoking in any form, including without limitation cigars and e-cigarettes. This policy applies to employees, volunteers, and visitors to Lake County property, vehicles and facilities and buildings. You're exactly right, Brad.
So when you read that, it's implementing county policy
Yep.
for visitors and everybody.
Lake County buildings and vehicles are smoke-free areas. Smoking is prohibited during working hours while on the job. Further, Lake County prohibits smoking in and around Lake County vehicles and equipment or machinery. So, for example, the road department, they're out on the job, they're not on county property. They couldn't smoke on or around or in vehicles or equipment, but they could smoke if they were not working, if they were on a break or lunch. It couldn't be around equipment or in vehicles. We talked about this.
Oh, I remember
Yeah.
talking about it, I don't remember the equipment part.
Heavy, you were talking about heavy equipment on and
Yeah.
around it, yeah. That's state law. You can't smoke in vehicles or on or around heavy equipment. That's not something we have latitude to decide. That's, state law requires that. Good?
State law is inclusive of publicly owned vehicles.
Yes, we cannot smoke in publicly owned vehicles. That is against, that's breaking state law.
But you can chew it.
I don't think so, I think they're tobacco free.
State law.
I think that's state law, tobacco free.
So in our, well, let's go back, I mean, I don't know how much time today we need to spend on this. I know you worked hard on the overall handbook, Jay, but we are looking at a policy, a county policy, not just for employees, but for all people.
Yes, you're right, yep.
And the state law part, you know, I don't know how valuable it is to repeat the same thing that's in state law versus cited. So that it's not something that's believed to be that we're coming up with, we're going to follow state law.
Yeah.
As well as these items, if there are, as well as these items.
Yeah, the last paragraph, I do, Oregon law prohibits smoking within 10 feet of buildings, building entrances and other openings, including second-story windows. That makes sense to include that kind of language about smoking in vehicles and equipment.
Mhm.
State law prohibits smoking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look at this state law, because you said it's tobacco. I thought it's just smoking. But you think the state law?
No, it's smoking. We've got the old version, I guess.
Okay. But the state law, it's just smoking, it's not tobacco free?
Oh, I understand your question now. I think it's tobacco too for inside vehicles.
So it should stay tobacco free, not?
Yeah, I'll have to sort that out, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. On page 11 there, you had changed that, prohibited political activity. You'd made some clarification on that.
Yes, yeah, it now reads, let me read it to you.
Is it
The very last sentence, however, this section does not restrict the right of a public employee to express personal political views during non-working hours.
Oh,
We do have the right to control that kind of speech while they're on the job.
okay, so the other part that I, on the first blush, was on the compensatory time, wherein we're right towards the tail end of the study and the union agreement with the general fund contract, looking to see if that is, as they presented to us, a cost savings. So before we implement it in the employee handbook, we have to make sure that our study, I guess, if you want to call it a study, or our first blush at that is,
Is what we thought it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Currently, we are, that is our policy though. The one thing good about having an updated handbook is we'll have an updated date on the bottom of that handbook. We can update it anytime we want. We can update it monthly if we need to. So I would propose making our policy right now align with what our policy currently is, making the handbook align with what our policy currently is, and then change it when we make.
No, I disagree with that. I don't know that we ever set county policy. Through the union contract, we agreed to that.
Yeah, we
Now, we
did.
might have followed that as being the same for everybody, but I don't know that it's ever, that the Board of Commissioners ever set that as policy.
Did not. It's been our practice to treat non-union employees the same
Yeah.
as union employees, so that's how we have implemented it.
So when's the target date for the study?
Before they, well, we have a 12-month sunset date, so
Okay.
the end of June would be the sunset date. It automatically discontinues unless we choose to continue it.
So could it say that in there? If we've agreed to try it for 12 months, that we put the date certain that it expires unless renewed? And that way it covers what it currently is, but it doesn't extend it indefinitely.
If we're looking at adopting this sooner than then, I think that's appropriate to have some
Okay.
clarification so that
Yeah.
not only the employees, but the department heads understand that
Right.
also.
Okay.
Just below that, under reimbursement request,
What page are you on?
on page 32 by mine, about having 2 months to turn in their expense.
Mm-hmm.
I think 30 days is plenty of time.
Okay. Yeah, we've had situations, well, just recently, when somebody turned in receipts 8 months old. Our auditor actually mentioned that to us, that we probably need a policy, and
Well,
we shouldn't be accepting 8-month-old receipts.
I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I do have an expectation of all employees to be as efficient as to have their stuff in much faster than 8 months. I mean, 30 days is plenty of time. Your power bill comes every 30 days.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I'm just smiling out of it.
Can you guys live with that?
That wasn't politically correct, was it, guys? You're laughing at me. So I would like to see that 30 days or something.
Yeah,
Okay, I've already made that change.
Okay, let me see. On travel, you've rewritten some of that, probably mainly because of some studies you've done and some questions I'd asked on travel reimbursement, mileage.
Yeah.
On that, I just, myself, I believe it's a little bit cleaner the way you've rewritten it. I don't know if Dan has it
I
rewritten.
don't have it.
So, that part for Dan to review, and Commissioner Kessler was here for him to review.
I sent this to Commissioner Kestner, and he responded last night in an email, said he's fine with the way it currently is.
Okay, good, thank you.
You were busy last night.
Yeah.
I think, Jay, and if I read it again tonight, I might have a couple other things, but I think that's covering the ones that I'd asked about. Appreciate that you're making sure that it's in there on the driving that it says spouse, and I gotta find it. I think that does it say or family members?
You're right, yeah.
Let me see, where is that one, do you remember?
I don't.
We have ran into that over the years with somebody wanting to ride with their husband or wife, and that just,
Well, it says in here, only county employees or agents of the county may travel in county-owned vehicles.
at one point it was much, it actually cleared that up quite a bit. So anyways, those were mine, Jay. I don't know if Commissioner Shannon has.
Well, we visited for probably an hour or so the other day on it, and I made the comments that I made at that time, so.
Okay, so I'll get this the overtime issue worked out. Between Jim Bailey and I, we'll get it worked out. I'll include the sunset date, that discussion with the comp time. Like there was one other change I wrote in here, but I'll make those changes. Anything else you want to discuss? The bulk of this is, experience that CIS has had throughout Oregon. Basically, policies get generated because of lawsuits and problems that we've had. And then new legislation, lots of new legislation this year. The Oregon sick time law, the drug policies, Family Medical Leave Act that section is long and wordy, but absolutely necessary.
So, is it possible to get a new copy of the one that,
Yeah.
if I could, I'll try and either read it today or tonight, just look at it again before
Okay.
tomorrow.
So you, mission statement, that's what you helped put together.
Yeah,
You're good with that?
yeah, I am good with
All
that.
right.
Isn't that the reason we come to work?
Yeah.
Isn't it the only reason?
I come just keep Dave Berman in mind, he's
Yeah.
a task every day. Oh.
I should be getting hazard pay then.
Yeah.
So,
Do the bottom of your story.
oh, I was just gonna say, Jay, that this was not a small undertaking, and we do very much appreciate all the work you put into this, so.
Well, it should be, now that we have it to where we need it, it should be easy to maintain. So every January, when new legislation comes out, we make those changes.
Yep.
Come to a meeting and it'd be simple. As we implement new policies or change existing policies, all we have to do is change that single thing and change the update date.
Well, it's just great to have it at this point, and it did take a lot of work to do that, so,
All right, thanks.
thank you.
Second topic, you ready?
Always ready.
Agent of record. In past years, our insurance agent has been paid a commission on the policies that we have enforced. But for the past 3 years, we've had a contract with Great Basin Insurance instead of commission. So our current cost of our contract is about $18,000 for all lines of insurance. That's property, liability, and workers' comp. If we were still on commission, we'd be paying over $22,000 right now, so there's been some savings by contracting with an agency. However, Jim Hoppy has been our agent for many years, longer than I can remember. But he retired in January. His successor has less experience, he's fairly new to the industry. So a local agency has requested that we put this out for bid, or consider his agency as, to become our agent of record. So as I see it, we've got 3 options. We continue with Great Basin. Jim Hoppy is still available with questions. He can lend his expertise for the next calendar year, through December of this year. They've got a support staff there that can probably handle all our needs.
So isn't that through December of this year?
Yeah, December 2017. So he's selling the business, but he's committed to staying on through the end of this year. Second option, we could put out an RFP or an RFQ, give us a chance to evaluate agencies that are interested and qualified to perform these services, and at what cost. Or, since it doesn't exceed the $75,000 contract limit, we could just informally solicit 3 bids. Third option, I guess, is we could keep this in-house, have our department handle these functions, save some money.
So those 3, Jay, the only one, especially the way you just described it, that I would say is not a reasonable alternative is option 1.
Okay.
I think it would do nothing because we have changed the agent and potential service level. We need to reevaluate
Yes.
those services and the cost of those services.
Okay. So one consideration with option 2 is we don't have a local agency that SAFE considers fully appointed. Fully appointed means they consider them to have the necessary experience and knowledge of workers' comp law. They write a big enough book of business to be able to handle a large client like us. We are considered a large client. SAFE writes almost all of the business here in town, so.
Is there an opportunity for local businesses to meet those qualifications?
So I asked that question, and they said, they don't normally do that. The only way for them to be able, they have to have enough workers' comp business in force with them and have enough years of experience with them to be able to be considered fully appointed. So I asked if the agencies here could get there, and they said no, not in the short term. They could in the long term.
What's considered long-term?
I don't know.
Well, the problem we'd have in drafting a new contract is if they're clearly saying they can't be the agent, or we prefer they weren't, then we're not having people submit bids apples to apples.
Yep.
So, that's a problem right there. The in-house, I think we need to describe that a little bit more, because there's nothing that says for a period of time, if you believe we can handle that and we have the relationships with all the other entities, that we couldn't see if that worked, and if it didn't, it's kind of like our sunset discussion on the handbook.
Yeah. You know, $18,000 is a lot of money, $22,000 is a lot of money for paying commissions. I think, you know, Nikki could do a great job of maintaining the property schedules. You know, she's in a better position to know what we're purchasing and what we're trading in and what properties we own than really an agent is. She's involved in all those things. From an underwriting and risk management point of view, I could handle those duties.
So for me, just because you were gonna describe some more things, but it is this, you know, I'm no expert in that arena. I appreciate the fact that you're bringing forward not only the options, but the understanding of what could and couldn't happen and what other agents have said, safe, et cetera. I'm gonna look strongly on your recommendation as to what we do.
Okay.
Jay and I have had quite a bit of conversation. I've been all over the board on it, to be honest with you. I've been anywhere from doing an RFQ to find out who's qualified out there to an RFP. I consider the workload that we continue to put on our department heads and other employees. Jay's got some experience in the insurance world, so that's a benefit for us possibly there. I also watched the last few days of the number of just people coming in and going into his office and the workload that's already there to think about, but the burden on their $18,000 contract that we have now is a lot of money. What's our exposure if we let something else fall off or if we overburden? You know, I don't know. There's a cost of having professionals in certain fields. So I'm all over the board as I think about
I'm
this.
honestly not nearly as Commissioner after last night, because he shut off his email replies by 10, so there's 20 hours still.
Playing basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so read the back of the NACO paper that we got yesterday
Yeah,
and think about those emails at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sort of, Jay, all over the board, honestly. Knowing that your department has the expertise, I believe, the way you described it to me. I go entirely with your word, but
Well,
I don't think there's a whole lot of counties our size that do it in-house, though. I think maybe the bigger ones that have staff and have more depth.
yeah, so I talked with both SAFE and City County. SAFE says they would be comfortable writing our workers' comp coverage directly. They used to do that. And what they do when they write directly with a county is they assign a representative to handle, so they handle agent duties in-house. So someone for you to work with. So workers' comp isn't really an issue for us. They wouldn't do that for an agent. So if we had an agent that was receiving a commission, we wouldn't have that in-house assistance.
Well, I think for me, it's as simple as, I would like to wait till tomorrow, even though it's not on the agenda, have you come back and give a view of what you think initially, and if that view was to keep it in-house, there's nothing to say that in 3 months you say, no, this isn't gonna work. I did not realize this or this or this. I mean, we're not tying ourselves to anything unless we do a contract.
Okay.
But I didn't mean to say that to sway what you would come back with, but just as an example, we're not tied into anything for any period of time if it's in-house.
City County likes counties and cities to have an agent, but mostly it's because of the amount of work to do. Renewals take a lot of work, maintaining those schedules like we talked about. But they'll allow us to choose any agent we want, that they don't have any restrictions on agencies. And they will allow us to write that property liability coverage directly. So it's up to us what we want to do.
I got a question, maybe not the right time to ask it, but, so we talk about insurance agents and everything doesn't meet the certification. Would we be required to use that same certification?
No, City County doesn't have that kind of requirement, property and liability. Safe does, but like I described, if we don't have an agent, then they give us a representative to work with. So any issues that we have,
So, and that's on workman's comp.
workers' comp, yes.
So is there an opportunity to have option number 4, which is we take the workers' comp side of things and we put the other out for bid?
Yep. We can split those up, definitely.
So you're the expert, you think about it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about that that you want to talk about or ask?
You got me now, tossing and turning.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, by the time you lean one way, then you start thinking,
Yeah.
and insurance is just,
I like the idea though
how
that,
much money we spend on them, but whenever you do have the situation, you want all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
so you asked me at one point to go back through my emails and kind of judge how much work were we demanding in Great Basin. And I tried to do that, but it's really hard. So I don't know. So I like Dan's comment about maybe giving it a trial run to see how it goes. We don't really have an idea of how much work is involved. We know all the things that need to be done, but I'm sure there's things that I'm not seeing. I'm looking at it thinking, that amount of work we can do, but then it may be a surprise to us.
Well, and not knowing all of the Jay, I wonder if having that third party takes some liability off the county by having that agent of record. Or if we take that on, does that give us any other liabilities that we're not thinking of? I don't know if there is or not, but
Yeah.
having that third party, they're sort of impartial when we get to
Yeah.
potential claims, lawsuits and those things. Is it money well spent, have that third party, that agent of record, so that, as you well know, we do end up with claims, lawsuits and other things. So I don't know if that's a fair statement or not, but sometimes that third party is the one that is the barrier and the protection.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Okay. I'll run that by city, county, and state, see
Yeah.
what their response to that is.
So Denise will add that for tomorrow. Get an update from Jay and see where's that.
All right, salary steps. When I met with the department heads about the handbook, one of the things we talked about was, it was obvious that we had two different vacation accrual schedules. That the union employees were getting a better benefit than non-union employees and department heads. What we proposed in the handbook was we make that fair. We treat the non-union employees the same as the union employees, which has always been our intent. So that takes care of that. However, the other thing that the department has brought up was we want a step system implemented. 3 years ago, we contracted LGPI to do a wage study for our exempt managers. We have those salary ranges, but we don't have any mechanism for department heads to move through those ranges. I've contacted all of our comparator counties, and all of them have step systems. Morrow County is have 7 5% steps. Baker County has 5 5% steps. Grant County has no steps, but they have longevity pay for every year with no limit. Malheur County has 9 steps, starting with 6%, ending at 2.5%, so it goes down each year, but 9 steps. Harney County has 5 steps, so 5% steps. So I'm proposing, if you look at our ranges, they were established at 20%, which is, it'd be really easy to modify that just a little bit to make 5% steps.
5%, 4%.
5%, because really you're only moving 4 times.
Okay.
You're going from step 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, so.
So as you and I discussed, if we were to do that, it has to be merit-based, it can't just be automatic. But I got another question for you,
Okay.
is it fluid enough to both go up and come down?
It's whatever you want in place. Probably, it'd be hard to accomplish that.
Okay, just want to get that on the record.
So, you know, we have some managers at the top of their range, some managers toward the bottom of the range, and all over the board in terms of 4, 5, 6, 8 years of experience, you know,
Sure.
they don't seem to correlate. So this would give us a way to think about these things. Helps us make decisions when we're hiring new people. You know, we see the range. Helps us be able to look at that and determine, you know, what are their skills, their knowledge, and their experience, and where they fit in there at the start, and how we move them through that range. So I think if we were to just expand those ranges by a really small percent, it would have to be less than for most of those ranges, if you expand the ranges of top and bottom, like $25 to $35, we'd get to the 4, 5% steps.
Well, it really, I like the idea personally, because it takes out that uncertainty with whoever is in that decision-making capacity. It allows employees, managers to perform at the highest level and know that if it's performance-based, that in this period of time, they'll be up for that kind of raise opportunity, where the way we have it right now, it's like, well, we recognize so-and-so's doing such and such, and so we propose doing this. And there's no rhyme or reason to what we do when we do that. And this clears it up for this board and for future boards and for everybody, for the employees, everyone.
Okay.
I wanted to get here for years. I'm ready because of exactly what you say. Generally, it's the board that's sitting here, and the employees that's out there, they know where they're at. They know where they can work for, what the goals are to get, not the goals, but where they can get once they get the top in, they know they're there. But it makes it easier for the decision-making group whenever there's evaluations done. And so yes.
Well, and another side benefit, because I'm just as guilty as anybody as far as employee evaluations of recent years, and quite frankly, if I'm an employee and I know I'm doing good work, I'm gonna pretty much demand an evaluation, because there's something tied to that.
So the way I see this working, if you have 5 steps, if we implemented a step every 2 years based on performance, the commissioners would need to do a performance review before that 2-year mark, and then make a decision. Does this person deserve to move to the next step? And if not, you give that person feedback. Here's what you need to do to get there. Clarify everything. Nobody's just sitting there wondering, am I ever going to get a raise? Am I going to be stuck here?
Well, and I possibly, and it's gonna be needing to be discussed, but I think with this budget time that we're coming up on, because 2 years ago was when we made the last change in those. That's when you got the survey done and everything else, so I would suggest that we at least have some discussion about doing this first, once we get to where we need to get, that we perhaps look at a July 1 or whatever date to do those evaluations, because it'll clearly have been 2 years since the original salary was established, and that will get us going, and people aren't sitting here for another 2 years.
Well, I would like on that language to be at the, I guess you'd say, maybe something like maximum would be every 2 years. There's no reason why the Board of Commissioners couldn't do an evaluation earlier than 2 years if they felt the need to evaluate.
Yeah.
And I also, I don't know if Commissioner Shaw will be here, but if a Board of Commissioners doesn't do that evaluation in 2 years, it should be an automatic step increase. That way you don't end up, boards of commissioners can change it any time. Some may want to do evaluations and others may not. And you can get people stuck there that they would never get evaluated because of the board decides not to do the evaluation. So if every 2 years, if there's no evaluation done, it's similar to the union contract. I don't wanna compare, but it's an automatic step.
That does put the onus back on the management group to do the work.
Yep.
If they don't do their work, the employee isn't penalized.
Yeah, and that's the way it's written in the handbook, or in the union contracts. If we don't do those performance evaluations, they automatically take that step.
I just think that it's keeping us on task here also, which is appropriate.
So what do you want from me?
Personal checkbook that they'll make this
Okay.
Well, I'd like to see, because you have those positions in the high and the low range, Jay, I'd like to see it just kind of laid out in a 5-step process, each of those positions, and bring it back before us for our consideration for approving that, along with the language as to what will trigger any step increases. As Commissioner
Well,
Winter just alluded to.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and it's sort of sooner than later, because
Yeah.
Anne's putting the numbers together on the salaries and everything within the budgets right now, which would have an impact.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. I can have that ready for you tomorrow if you want to consider that tomorrow.
I'm fine with it.
I am too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for getting that before us and everything.
Yep.
We've had the discussions all around it for quite some time.
There will be a lot of people very interested in us doing something.
I think a few of them sitting in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking at anybody, but
No, I think there will be some people that, some positions that we need to look at and say, we probably need to address these sooner than later.
yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate it. You're not going anywhere, are you?
No, I was just gonna move.
Just move over to that chair.
You know, due to the department updates, Lan's in here, and did you have any?
Well, no, I just was gonna say, I made a mistake on that spreadsheet you looked at earlier, so I'm taking responsibility for it. So, we'll get it cleared up,
We'll have it tomorrow.
yes.
Okay.
Dave's enjoying himself way too much right now.
That was me, so
No
I was
problem.
looking at monthly notes.
Dan didn't email you to humiliate you yet?
It's on its way, is that what you're telling me?
We argued last night by emails.
Yeah, and it's terrible to do that, because I wanted to tease Jay, and I didn't know how to write it, that he'd take it that way, and he fires back an email saying,
Well, I had an email ready to send back that said in really tiny letters, "You're right," and then the rest of it.
it was quite an exchange. Okay, did we have any other department updates? Did we have any additional liaison updates? We're gonna wait till tomorrow on yours.
Yeah, on the nuisance side, we'll have an update tomorrow. The subcommittee met yesterday, and we'll have an update. Yeah.
Denise, I didn't look at you, department updates.
Thanks for asking.
I hate to do this, but I think that our next agenda item in the executive session is gonna last at least a couple hours. I'd like to take a short break
At least a couple hours, Kevin's eyes just went wide.
before we do that. I will say that we will, when we come back in, it's 11:25. When we come back in, we'll be going into executive session 192.6602I under,
To review the performance of an employee.
okay, perfect.
Do you guys have